right, give me 1 second here. I know. This is all like okay. So hopefully we're going now. All right. Let me. I know that's there. We go. Go live and go. All right. Okay. I think we're all good now. Give me one more second here. All right. Hi everybody. Oh, hold on one more second. I tell you, I am just never organized with this stuff. But you know, I wouldn't be me if I was. So, all right. So, welcome to ADHD Real Talk. Um, my name is Jorie Houlihan. If you are new here, I'm your guide for the dopamine deprived. I am an ADHD coach, speaker, and host of the podcast ADHD and dot 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 with Jorie Houlihan. And I come on here live every Wednesday at noon Central Time to talk about something ADHD related for a few minutes. So, today, I want to talk about something that I think is at the root of so much shame for us. And it is that feeling of sitting in a classroom or maybe even a boardroom, staring at a piece of paper, reading the same paragraph over and over again, and realizing nothing is going in. Have you been there? I've been there a lot in my life. You look around and everyone else seems to be getting it and they are all nodding and, it's all good, but it's still a little they're all getting it, but you're not per se. And so, they're taking notes and you are just sort of wondering if if the window is open or if that hum is coming from the projector or something that is not related to why you're there, right? So for a long time I took that to mean that I was not smart or that I was broken. And after talking to Dr. Emily Levy this week, she was the guest on my podcast this week. I want to reframe that for us today because you aren't broken. You were just trying to upload a file in the wrong format, so to speak, right? So we're going to break down why the traditional sit and listen method, which I just don't know why we still do that, that fails the ADHD brain. And more importantly, we're going to take a look at how we could possibly fix it using some of the strategies that Dr. Levy shared. All right. So, first, let's start with the who, right? Because the one thing that Dr. Levy mentioned really, I've known this for a long time, but it was kind of, I felt validated hearing it coming from her too. And I know this is going to hit home for a lot of you listening, which is we talked about how ADHD presents in girls versus boys. And historically, the school system was designed to catch the hyperactive boys, right? The kid that's jumping off the chair and the kid, running laps around the room. But for many of us, especially women, that was not our story, right? Dr. Levy pointed out that girls often struggle quietly. We aren't disrupting the class necessarily. Instead, we are the ones with the messy locker. We are the ones losing our homework. We are the ones who are incredibly bright and articulate, but scattered. And and that is sort of where the smart but scattered paradox comes in. You might have, you know, cruised through elementary school, for example, but then, and you thought you were, and not that you were smart enough to compensate at that time. But then you hit middle school or high school, and suddenly, there's so many new executive functions in play. You have to change classrooms. You have to manage a schedule. You have to remember five different assignments that are in five different classes, that are in five different rooms on five different floors, right? And that is where the grades tend to tank. And Dr. Levy noted that this isn't an intelligence issue. It is an executive function issue, as I've said. So because nobody told us that, we internalized it as a character flaw, right? We thought we were fundamentally broken. We told ourselves we were just lazy or just not good at school. And if you are a parent listening to this and you see your daughter struggling to keep track of her own life, even if she's getting B's or C's, don't wait for her to fail. Okay, please don't wait that long. Dr. Levy was very clear on this. She said, please don't wait and see. That disorganization is a symptom. All right. So many girls slip through the cracks. And if you are worried about your kid, whether they're a boy or girl or whatever they are, and you're worried about them getting a label, I assure you they're already getting labels and they're not ones you like. Get them assessed if you can. You are going to set them up so much more for success if they know what they're dealing with. All right. So, so if the problem in our brains is that our brains does our brain doesn't process information linearly, right? Or passively, what is the solution for that? So Dr. Levy's entire career is built on multisensory learning. I was really excited to talk to her, okay, about this because I think this is something that is huge and I'm hoping that more schools will take this on. Okay, so multisensory learning can sound like a buzzword, but we're going to kind of strip it back a bit. So traditional school is usually auditory and visual, right? The teacher talks, auditory, you read the board, visual. But for an ADHD brain, that is often not enough stimulation to keep the neurotransmitters firing, right? It's not enough to keep the dopamine going. So we tune out. So multisensory learning means engaging the tactile and kinesthetic senses too. It's about doing, not just watching. So Dr. Levy gave examples like using magnetic tiles or writing in sand or using whiteboards. Now, for us, for as adults or for your older kids, that concept still applies. If you can't focus on a book, stop trying to force yourself to just sit there. All right, gauge in another sense. So, I actually, after I was diagnosed and medication was not helping my mind wandering when I was reading, I had an idea one day. I'm like, what would happen if I read it while I listened to the audiobook at the same time? And it was absolutely, it changed how I read. Okay, because 'cause I'm engaging my eyes and my ears and my brain, and it just works better than just reading the book, okay, or just listening to the audiobook. It's even worse if it's just the audiobook. I have to rewind it so many times. Anyway, but I can speak firsthand to how that really helped me tremendously. All right. So another strategy that Dr. Levy shared, which came from her 5-year research study, is visualization. So this one really fascinated me because I struggle with with visualization. So if you tell me visualize a beach, I got nothing. Nothing shows up. Okay. Or it's very, very vague at best. So Dr. Levy, and I asked her about that. I said, there are people who can't visualize. I'm one of them. So how do you work with kids who maybe struggle with this? And so she explained a very specific way that they train this. So for those of you who struggle with this kind of thing too, this is something you're going to want to pay attention to. So she said, you read one sentence, just one. Johnny sat by the campfire, and then you stop and you ask questions. Is it night or is it day? Is the fire big or is it small? Who is sitting next to him, right? You force your brain to paint the picture. And she found that when students do this, their reading comprehension skyrockets, first of all, because they are converting words into a movie, right? And I think also it is when you start to make it so real like that, when you start to ask those questions, it just you have to be paying more attention because you have to answer the question. So that's the other reason for the comprehension. So anyway, so the next time you are reading a dense report for work, something really boring, or an email chain, maybe try that. That might help. All right. Just read one line, picture who is saying it, picture the scenario, make it 3D. It stops the scanning without reading loop we sometimes end up in, right? We realize we haven't been reading and we go back, and then the same thing happens like so many times. Oh my gosh. Anyway, all right. The other beast that we kind of all wrestle with is time, right? Time is not our friend in ADHD. We all know what time blindness is real. We think a task will take 5 minutes and it takes an hour, or we think a project is huge, so we procrastinate and it turns out it only took us 10 minutes. Yeah. So Dr. Levy shared a strategy called ET versus AT. And I was very happy because I actually do this with my clients too. I don't call it that, but it's the same thing. So this is estimated time, the ET versus actual time, AT. So here's how you do it. And I highly recommend this if you are somebody who, if you are always late, if you are always losing time somewhere, or find yourself procrastinating a lot because you think something's going to take too long, I really recommend you do this. Okay. It's one of the first things I do with my private clients. So before you start a task, whether it's answering emails, cleaning the kitchen, writing a proposal, it doesn't really matter what it is, right? Write down your ET, your estimated time. I think this will take 20 minutes, for example. Then time yourself and then write down the AT, the actual time. Okay. And Dr. Levy said that in the beginning, the gap between those two numbers is usually pretty massive and that is okay. Okay. The point isn't to shame yourself for being wrong. The point is the data. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from clients some variation on, I knew I was off. I just didn't know I was that off. Okay. So, and if you do that consistently, your brain starts to recalibrate. And that's what's really cool about it. So you start to learn that writing an email actually takes you 12 minutes, not two. Okay. And when you start to, when your brain starts to recalculate like that, recalibrate like that, this changes everything for planning, right? So now you have a much more accurate look at how long things take you to do. So of course it then is going to make planning a lot easier and more um, accurate, right? We get overwhelmed because we put 10 hours of work into a 5-hour batch of time, right? And so that tool helps you to see the actual size of what you're doing. Okay. All right. Then I want to touch briefly on the school system side of things because Dr. Levy clarified something that I think confuses a lot of parents. So, odds are if you have ADHD and you have children, probably at least one of them has ADHD, right? And so I asked her to clarify the difference between a 504 plan and an IEP. So, if you were fighting for your kid right now, you need to know what you're asking for. So, Dr. Levy explained that a 504 plan is about access. It provides accommodations to help the student access the general curriculum. That might be, extra time on tests or sitting at the front of the classroom, getting written directions and instead of just audible directions. But an IEP, which is an individualized education program, is much more intense. This is for students who need specialized instruction because they cannot access the curriculum as it is currently taught. And knowing the difference is going to give you power. Okay. In Illinois, anyway, if you are diagnosed with ADHD, you are automatically put in the 504. Okay. If you have ADHD, if you have autism, depending on how I don't know what the right word is I'm trying to say, how serious it is, the more it impacts you, then you might be more eligible for an IEP. It really depends on the kid. If your child just needs the environment to change, you're going to look at a 504. If they need the teaching to change, you need to look at an IEP. And I have said many times, you know, first of all, don't be afraid to be that parent. Okay? You fight for your kids. You will not regret it. Okay? If you are in a district that pushes back, keep pushing. And as Dr. Levy said, you just have to find the right path. I don't love our one size fits all education system, but until we can find a different way of doing it, this is what we have to do. So keep pushing, keep advocating for your kid, keep advocating for yourself. If you're in school, you are eligible for accommodations as well. Okay. It's not just for the little kids. All right. So I want to leave you with a story that Dr. Levy shared that really, I loved this story so much. And she worked with a first grader years ago, and he had severe ADHD, severe dyslexia. He was struggling to read, struggling to write, and by all traditional metrics, he was failing. But they didn't force him into the standard box, thankfully. They used the multisensory tools, they used the Orton Gillingham methods that she implements, and they taught him the way he learned, not the way the teacher knew to teach. This is what we need more of in our schools, if you want my opinion. Anyway, years later, the mom called Dr. Levy, and that boy didn't just make it through grade school. He made it through high school. He made it through college, and now he is a successful engineer. School is sometimes really hard for these kids, okay? For this kid, the potential was always there. The intelligence was always there. He just needed a different set of keys to unlock it. So whether you are listening to this for your child or for listening for that inner child, right, who still feels stupid for losing your keys or forgetting a meeting or not doing so well in school, I really want you to hear this because you have the potential to excel. You just need to stop judging yourself by the system that wasn't built for you and start building a system that does work for you. Okay. And so that's what we do here, right? We're helping you figure out your manual. All right. So I think I've talked enough here. Thank you very much for tuning in to this edition of Real Talk. So go try the ET versus AT challenge this week. Okay. Let me know how it goes. Put it in the comments how what what the difference was for you on some things, right? Um yeah, we almost always all underestimate most. It's a thing. Anyway, but you're not alone and you can totally do this. I have every faith in the world in you. All right, you got this. So until next time, stay curious. Yeah, we almost always all underestimate. It's a thing. Anyway, but you're not alone and you can totally do this.